Invention is one of those skills that it can be quite hard to wrap your head around, but I'm going to try and make this the best new player friendly guide on the skill, so let's jump into it. G'day guys, I'm LaserShark, and before we begin training Invention, I want to make this as easy as possible to understand. So the main way of training Invention is actually just by training your skills as you normally would, being fishing, woodcutting, fire making, combat. All of those skills can train Invention. So imagine that you are sitting there fishing. Now, instead of getting XP for every single fish that you catch, imagine that you only got the XP once you sold it on the Grand Exchange. That's the sort of mentality you need to have for how Invention works. In order to unlock Invention, you will need to also obtain having level 80 in smithing, crafting, and divination, as this is an elite skill, meaning that you need to get those levels to unlock Invention. Once you have these levels, teleport to Falador's Lodestone. Once you're at the Lodestone, you want to head north, up the stairs, and inside the Invention Guild, where you will find Doc. Speak to Doc and you'll be able to start the Invention quest. This should only take you about 5 minutes and will run you through the basics. However, after the quest is done, I will still run you through how it works and make it a little bit more easier to understand. You'll find Doc over on the right hand side of the Invention Guild as you enter. Speak to him to start the quest. Once the quest is complete, let's run through blueprints. Blueprints are how you unlock the ability to invent new items throughout your journey. So in order to do this, go to the workbench that Doc showed you on the left hand side. Once you find the blueprint that you want to create, you can simply click on it and it will give you this screen here with all of the different components. Starting from the bottom left, now click all of the components and add them in. Click prototype. Some of them will fail, so you will need to keep continuing adding in components, prototype it again, and just continue doing this until it goes according to plan. With the last one here, that should be all of our materials. Now on this page here, the combination of materials is always random, so just add them in whatever order. Down the bottom, you will now see optimization is poor. We need this to say perfect, because if you have a perfect blueprint, you will get a crazy amount of bonus XP. So we need to check the bottom constantly to see if we are doing better or worse, which is where my method name comes from. Start off by taking the very first component and switch it with the second component, and then check the bottom to see if it is better or worse. Now the order for this is poor, satisfactory, good, very good, excellent, and then perfect. So this one here, it didn't change. So what we need to do is we need to change that back to where it originally was. And now we're going to change the first one into the third one. It's better. So because it's better, we're actually going to leave it there. And now what we're going to do is start from the second position and once again do the change. So second into third, better or worse? It's the same. We move it back. Second to fourth, better or worse? It's better. So now we are going to leave it there at the very good position. Once again, we are now going to take the third, put it into the fourth. It's better. So we have excellent. Now the only thing for us to do here is move fourth into fifth. It's actually worse. Once you've got this, you work backwards. So starting from the right hand side, we're now going to better or worse this last one to the third position, which is worse, then the second position, which gives us our perfect blueprint. So remember, start from the left, better or worse across. Once you've gotten to the last position, you want to use the last one and take it backwards, doing the exact same thing. And that is how you obtain your bonus XP. So remember, blueprints are your key to unlocking extra things that you can invent in the future. As you level up, you'll unlock more blueprints, so just remember to always come back and do those when you get the chance. Now let's talk about actually training Invention. Invention can be trained through combat and skilling, making it a really versatile skill. For both combat and skilling, you will need to either buy or make an augmenter as well as some divine charges. Once you have an augmenter, grab the item that you want to augment, use the augmenter on it, and then accept the pop-up window that comes available. Now, if the item was previously degradable, like my Virtus wand was, it is going to be no longer degradable, and remember, you cannot trade an augmented item. However, you can also buy or make an item called a augmentation dissolver to remove this device, and then it will become tradable again. If it was a degradable item, it will then be in a broken state after dissolving. In order to use augmented devices, be it skilling or combat, you will need divine charges. Now, the best way to think of these is like a battery. Imagine that the augmented device is a battery operated machine. So you are going to have to either make or buy divine charges to keep them running. Once you run out of divine charges, these items will cease to work. Once you have some divine charges, simply click on your character and add them. I will touch a little bit more on divine charges as they do play a pretty big role later on. Not every item can be augmentable, so make sure you check the wiki down below to find out which items can be augmented. Some examples are the God Wars dungeon armor such as Subjugation, Armadile and Bandos, Dragon Hatchets, Dragon Pickaxe, Crystal Weaponry, Crystal Tools. These can all be augmented, whereas other things such as Elderrune, Bainite, Necronium, all of those armors cannot be augmented. Now that we have our item augmented, it's time to understand how these items work. When you hover over the item, you will see the item's level at the bottom, as well as item XP. Remember before how I mentioned, imagine if you were fishing and you got no XP for actually fishing until you sold the fish on the Grand Exchange. That's exactly how this works. The item level and the item XP is specific to that one item. So your chest plate, your pants, your weapon, they will all have their own level with their own level of XP. Now, all of the XP that you're getting from combat will be stored inside the item until we release it. This is why I've highlighted that it is not invention XP, it is item levels, item XP, because it's individual. So from my example of the fishing, how do we cash out? How do we turn the item level and XP into invention XP? Well, we can do that in two ways. We can disassemble the item and we can siphon the item. Let's talk about it. When you start out, you will only have access to disassembling items. Now, this will destroy the item, so you will need another item plus another augmenter. It will give a higher XP rate than siphoning. It will give you materials, which we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it can be more expensive. So you want to disassemble an item once the item is level 10. This will give you the maximum XP possible from disassembly. There is no point in training past level 10. Once you hit level 27 invention, you can start to siphon. Now, when you siphon an item, it will take all of the XP and convert it into invention XP from the item, and it will not destroy the item. However, it does give less XP. So if you were to siphon an item at level 10, it would be the equivalent of disassembling an item at level 8. So in order to get that maximum XP, you will need to train longer, and you will siphon the item at level 12. In order to get from level 4, which is what you finish your quest at, to level 27 in order to siphon, we are going to use black salamanders as they're cheap to buy. However, the augmenters are not so cheap to buy. You will need 3 salamanders. I know I bought 2 in the video, but you will need 3 salamanders to reach level 27 invention. Now, you can train anywhere you want to level up these salamanders. However, all you need to do is level them up to level 5, and then you can disassemble them and get the XP. Per salamander, you should see 91,000 XP. A place that I recommend training with one of these is the fight caves with Jad, as by the time you get up to Jad, you should have definitely gotten to level 5. Once you reach level 27, you can start siphoning, which means that you can get your weapons such as Dragon Rider Lances, Masuda's War Spears, and you can start to augment them and start to siphon them, meaning that it won't destroy them. If you wish to keep on disassembling items, I recommend upgrading to crystal weaponry. Now they are obviously more expensive than the salamander, but it does give you access to the crystal halberd as well as the crystal staff, which you can start to use area of effect abilities for. And not only that, when you disassemble them, they do give you really good components as well. The two areas that I recommend training your invention is in the Abyss and at Elite Dungeons 3. Now, the Abyss requires you entering the wilderness, which is why you can see me buying Mystic Armor, as you don't want to risk high value items in the wilderness, as there is a potential for you to be PK'd. However, once you make it into the Abyss, you have got yourself a really good training spot. If you've never been to the Abyss before, you will need to complete a mini quest which you can access via talking to the Zamorak monk outside the north part of Edgeville, just over the wilderness ditch. You could follow it straight through. Once you have completed it, you can go to the same monk out in the wilderness and then he will teleport you directly to the Abyss. Now, if you're not wearing a particular amulet, you will get skulled. However, that doesn't matter, as you can get rid of a skull by entering your player-owned house. Once inside the Abyss, you can begin attacking the enemies. This is why I mentioned that you need a halberd type weapon or the staff, because you will be able to use your area of effect abilities in here. And it's not only just great invention XP in here, it is really good combat XP in here as well. A newer method of leveling up your augmented items as well as getting insane money as well as insane combat XP is Elite Dungeons 3. If you haven't done it before, there's a link in the description down below. We can see in this example here that my Dragon Rider Lance is level 12 and my plate legs are level 13. I've accidentally trained too much on my plate legs, so I've just wasted time by doing that. Now all we need to do is grab some siphons, grab the items, and when you use the siphon onto the item, it will then grant you invention XP, and the item will reset back to level 1 and you train it back up to level 12 again. Siphon, train, siphon, train. That's exactly how invention works. It is very easy once you understand it. If you have made it to this part of the video, you are able to train your invention. That is the basic fundamentals of training invention done. Now we're going to get into some of the more technical terms, so try to stay with me. I'll try and make it as easy as possible to understand. The tier of the item that is augmented plays a massive part in how much XP it will actually give you per siphon and disassemble. For example, Barrow's armor is a tier 70 armor and Masterwork is a tier 90 armor. Looking at the graph on the left, you can see that a tier 70 item, I will need to siphon or disassemble 23 of them to get the level that I want, whereas if I was using the Masterwork armor, I would only have to siphon or disassemble 17 of them. Before you run out and start buying Masterwork because it is more XP, you have to think for a second about the charges. The higher the tier of the item is, the more charges you are going to use per hour, and it's going to become much more expensive. Now we can talk about components. This is where a lot of people find the hardest part of understanding invention. In order to get components, you need to disassemble items, not augmented items, but just normal items throughout the game. The reason why you need components is to build your invention items as well as obtain perks. Again, I'll talk about perks in the next section, but for components, they are very useful for building your invention items. Each time you disassemble something, you have a chance at obtaining a component, but you also have a chance at getting junk. In the description down below, you'll find a link to the RuneScape wiki, which will tell you what items have the best chance of obtaining the component you're after and the least amount of chance of obtaining junk. I highly recommend disassembling all of your common reef relics from Elite Dungeons 3, as these give you a freaking amazing amount of components and it's free. You'll be able to disassemble 60 items at a time. Now you will end up getting quite a fair amount of junk to start off with, however there is a blueprint that you can unlock that will reduce the chances of finding junk as you level up. Now we can put it all together. Go back to the Invention Guild, click on the right hand side of the table, and we can make what are called gizmo shells. Now, a gizmo is like an augmenter. It attaches to an item. You can have it for tools, weapons, and armor. Now, the invention means that we need to have the materials in order to create it. This is why we disassemble items. If you have the required materials, well, we can start to make them. So, manufacturer. When you go and manufacture these items, you will then gain experience in crafting and invention. This particular one that I just made was a weapon gizmo. So I'm going to build a perk for my weapon. On the right hand side, you can see 5 empty planes. These are for your materials. Now, the correct combination for the perk that you are trying to get is once again in the wiki down below. Now, this is it's a loot box at the end of the day. You are not guaranteed to get the perk that you want, which is what it's intended to do. These are basically Jagex's versions of loot boxes in the game, so it will take a few attempts to get the right perk that you're after. For this example, I want to get Equilibrium and Precise. These are 2 really good things that you should try and put on your weapons if you don't already have them. In order to do this, I add all of these bow looking components and then I create the gizmo. On my first attempt, I wasn't successful. So what we have here on the right hand side, we can repeat the same combination of items, or we can retry it with a different combination of items. So I'm going to retry it, and this time I did get the exact gizmo I was actually after, which is awesome. Once you have the gizmo with the perks that you want, simply have the item in your inventory just like we did with the augmenter and use the gizmo on the item. The item will now have these perks applied to it. And remember, you can add perks onto your tools, your weapons, and your armor, and even the upgraded tools, which are the O-matic ones. If you don't have any of these unlocked, you will need to complete the blueprints to unlock all of the gizmos. Some perks that I recommend for your weapon is the Precise and Equilibrium. This will give you basically a better average hit and damage per second. Biting, which gives you a 2% chance per rank to critically hit an opponent. And for armor perks, something like Crackling. Crackling is a pretty cool ability that allows you to basically strike your enemies with lightning if it goes off, which is really cool. Venom Blood, which is something that's really crazy because it just completely negates all poison damage. Mobile, which will reduce the cooldown of Surge by 50%. As you level up, these are the things that I need you to unlock along your way. New components blueprints. The last thing you want to do is spend hours disassembling items when you could have been getting better components from them. Tie this with the junk reduction blueprint and you'll have better components throughout your training. The charge reduction blueprint, meaning that you spend less time actually recharging your items. You've got more time to train with them before they run out, and it's going to save you more money. Speaking of saving money, the auto alchor is going to save you so much time and make you money because it is going to automatically alch all of the items that you put inside it. And just like disassembling, while you're there disassembling, you're not getting XP, you're not getting gains, so let the machine do it for you. If you want a portable version of both the auto alchor and disassembler, unlock the spring cleaner as it does both directly from your inventory. And finally, we reach the end of the guide. This has taken me so long to make for you guys, but I really hope that I explained it in a way that broke it down to the bare minimum so that you guys can finally understand Invention, how it works, how to train it, what you can get out of it. And I know there is a lot of information in this video, but I've tried to make it as one complete guide to finally get this skill under wraps and teach all of you guys, if you're a new player, you're a returning player, or you just never understood Invention. Hopefully this video did the trick for you guys. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, I want you to basically say the code word in chat right now because I want to see how many people have actually watched this far. And our code word for this video is Master Twerk Armor because I'm always interested to see how many people actually make it to the end of these videos. If you are new around here, subscribe for more RuneScape content. I'm out of breath. I am exhausted from this guide, so I will catch you guys later. If you want to talk at any time, we have a Discord, which is linked in the description down below. I'll see you guys next time. This is Laser Shark, and I'll frickin' see you later.